big problems need solving this century. We've grown so powerful as a species that every corner of the earth feels our influence. And with great power comes great responsibility. So the burning question for us is, how do we as a global species solve the problems that we face? This talk is about how to do that. Specifically, it's about how to best use the mechanism that already exists for exactly this purpose. That mechanism is government. Except that, according to 2021 analysis by the United Nations, trust in government has been falling for decades. So we need to talk about that too. Because if we're serious about solving our problems, I believe that we need to rebel against this rejection of government. Rejection of our ACE card. Let's start with some syntax. The term government, it's problematic because it smushes together two wildly different things: politics and the public sector. Our news cycles are full of what our politicians are doing. And this is where our trust problem starts. Because the political process in many countries has gotten warped by vested interests. And honestly, because most of us have never even met a politician. But on the other side of government, the public sector, it's a completely different story. The public sector is full of everyday citizens, people just like us, who we almost never hear about. Public servants go to work every day in offices, schools, hospitals, quietly delivering the essential services that our societies need. In fact, if you look around the world, regardless of the political systems, every society builds bureaucracies because they work, mostly. Democracies, communism, dictatorships, religious, secular, they all have bureaucracies behind them, literally keeping the lights on, keeping the traffic flowing and the sewage flowing, stabilizing everything from our voltage to our currency. All told, public sectors stabilize societies so that individuals and businesses can thrive. Incidentally, businesses, corporations, here's their role. They deliver what individuals want. Yeah? Contrast that with government, which delivers what society needs. Individual wants, societal needs. They're two halves of the whole. We need both. And we need both to stay in their lanes. We wouldn't ask the Department of Health to produce a fitness wearable, right? And it wouldn't be reasonable for us to ask a technology giant to put out public health advice. We leave the wearable to the tech giant and the health advice to the health department, yeah? And so we should. It's what we pay them for. Private sector gives us what we want. Public sector gives us what we need. That works. Except what about those big problems, right? What's missing? Simon Sinek gives us a clue on his podcast. He says, and oh, my sincere apologies to Simon Sinek for this terrible impression. He says, I want to see a return to idealism. We don't talk about world peace anymore. Why not? I want idealism back. I agree with Simon. And it turns out, so do most of us. Surveys from citizens around the world are crystal clear. When it comes to our big problems, we want humanity to aim high. But we're skeptical that that's even possible. It seems to me that we've forgotten what our public sector is capable of. So, let me tell a story to remind us. It's the story of a little circular scar that most of us don't have. It's from a vaccine for smallpox. Now, you've probably heard of smallpox, yeah? But you might not understand how bad it was. The World Health Organization estimates that in the 20th century alone, smallpox killed around 300 million humans. 30% of people who caught it died. And it's been terrorizing humanity for over 3,000 years. So how come we haven't all got that vaccine? It's because in 1980, we eradicated smallpox. Specifically, our public sector eradicated it. It took decades and global coordination, but they did it. Incidentally, now, they're this close to doing it again with polio. Here in Australia, there are around 2 million public sector employees. That's 20% of our workforce. And according to the International Labour Organization and the World Bank, globally, 18% of the workforce is public sector. That's over 600 million people. What that means is no matter where you live, odds are you know quite a few people who work in the public sector. These aren't faceless bureaucrats. These are your neighbors, they're your friends, your family. You know them. There are people like Kate. Kate's not her real name, but her story's real. Kate works for Australia's health department. She monitors medicines coming into the country, or more importantly, she monitors what's not coming in. Kate's job is to prevent medicine shortages. Kate looks for dips in supply, and then she works with doctors and pharmacists to identify safe substitutions. And we're not just talking about aspirin. Kate's team has found substitutions for cancer drugs, for diabetes drugs, the stuff that keeps some of us alive. I wish we heard about that on the news. Let's meet another public servant, Shane. I met Shane outside my house one day when he was making my world a bit safer. See, I live on a blind corner and it's got one of those safety dishes, yeah? But the dish had gotten knocked out of alignment and not so safe. Now, Shane works for my local council in the roads department. And as it turns out, he was just passing by that day and he saw the problem. And so he stopped to fix it. Shane didn't have to stop. He stopped because he cared. Kate and Shane and millions of public servants like them are everyday people who love what they do. Love helping. People like Kate and Shane are the rebellion against those vested interests that threaten our common good. But they're vulnerable. It's hard standing up to vested interests, and it's hard going to work through budget cuts and through outsourcing. But a lot of the time, for people like Kate and Shane, the hardest part is knowing that a bunch of their fellow citizens kind of hate them. And believe me, they know. So let me tell you one last story. It's about someone that I met at a barbecue. His name's Mark, and as you do, I asked Mark what he did for a living, and he got cagey. He said, "I work in IT, it's boring." I'm nosy, so I kept digging, and slowly I got it out of Mark that he worked for the Australian Taxation Office. Now, to me, I was excited. This is like winning the jackpot. Yeah, it's like public servant in the wild. I was chuffed, and I told him. And I will never forget the look of skepticism on Mark's face that someone would find out he worked for the tax office and still even want to talk to him. He reminded me of a dog at the pound just flinching, waiting to be kicked again. And I know why he flinched. Because I flinch when I tell people that I'm a former public servant. And I flinch again when I say that now I help public servants be even more effective. Did you notice that language? Even more effective? I used to just say, in how to be effective, but that got so many eye rolls. And so now I really carefully say, I train public servants in how to be even more effective. So then they know where I'm starting from. I still get the eye rolls though. Y'all, we have to stop those eye rolls. If we're serious about solving the big problems that we face as cities, as countries, as a global species, the public sector is our only hope. Yes, with private sector help, and yes, with citizens, and with politicians. But the simple truth is that our public sector, imperfect as it is still the only thing with the powers and the tax base and the millions of arms and legs and brains and hearts that we need. But it can't succeed if we allow it to be undermined. So let me finish with two things that you can do. You know that old expression, think global, act local? That sums it up. First, big picture. Rebel against the rejection of our public sector wherever it shows up. In the budget cuts and the outsourcing, the politicization, the eye rolls. Instead, be part of rebuilding the social license that helps our public servants to rebel against those vested interests. Lean into the idea that our public sector can and should lead the charge on solutions. And then, get local. Get to know the stories of the public servants in your world. Your neighbors, your friends, your family. Ask them about their work. Encourage their excitement. Trust me, it's there. Our public servants are the ace up our sleeve that we forgot we had. The time to play our ace is now.